If one of these bolts were to come out, then it would possibly go in here, and that would be a really bad day. The thing that most bike guys like to do the most is just ride in the higher RPMs. It fits in real snug, just like that. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. For those of you who don't know, my name is Samson, and in today's video, we have a really exciting project that is coming along. As you guys can see, we do have a package. And this package got shipped all the way from Australia, and it goes on my Kawasaki ZH2. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Kawasaki ZH2 is basically a naked version of the H2, the Ninja H2 that many people have known to come and love. It's a supercharged bike, supercharged 1000cc bike. It makes right around 200 horsepower, and that is stock from the factory. I don't have any mods as far as performance mods. We do have some other mods like frame sliders, windshield. We also have, some stuff like the tail tighty and everything. But as far as performance goes, we are going to be pushing the performance on this bike just a little bit, just to squeeze a little bit more out of it that the engineers have left room for us to do. But in order to do something like that, you're going to need to have what is in this box right here in order to make it safe. And speaking of what's in the box, how about we go ahead, let's get it open. Now, if you guys see the title, you see the thumbnail, then you know exactly what all this stuff is for. And yes, guys, I am talking about, we have an intercooler kit and blow-off valve for the ZH2. Now, these bikes, with them being supercharged, they are notorious for having high boost temps. Even just riding my bike with it being, fully stocked, not having any type of performance mods to it at all. Even just riding mine hard for any extended, you could say, period of time, but riding it hard for like 2 minutes, 5 minutes or so, you can see the boost temps starting to creep up. I've seen them get as high as 180, and that was only when I started paying attention to it. When I first got the bike, me and my boys went out for a ride. I wasn't paying attention to the boost temps at all, and I rode the bike pretty hard. This right here should allow us to have some fun with the bike, not be worried about boost temps getting too high, because this should keep the boost temps at a maximum, I believe, of anywhere between 150 to 160. And so with this kit, you should be able to ride it just like an NA bike, which most 1000cc bikes are. That's what makes the ZH2 so unique, is that you do get that added benefit of the supercharger, but there's also a detriment to that, as there is with all things ups and downsides. Now, if you've been paying attention closely, you guys see where we got this intercooler kit from, and it is from Extreme Creations. I'm excited to announce that today's video is being brought to you by Extreme Creations. Definitely could not have made it happen without them. And this kit right here is on the pricier side of things. Granted, we did get a little bit more than just the kit. We got the kit, we got the blow-off valve, and we got a caliper bracket. At some point in time, I do want to upgrade the rear caliper for the ZH2 to a dual piston Brembo caliper. I want to have as much stopping power as possible. Now, the combination of everything that we have here today would generally be a little over $2,000. It'd probably be just under $2,500, but anywhere between $2,000 and $2,500. That's why I do want to give a big thanks to Extreme Creation. Guys, if you are looking for anything custom, make sure that you go to their website, make sure that you look them up, see what they got for you. They got a lot of really cool stuff. I've been seeing a lot of their stuff sort of based around Yamaha and Kawasaki bikes, but they do make just generalized things as well. So guys, make sure that you go check them out if you haven't. Guarantee that you won't be disappointed. Getting back into the kit, how about we go ahead, try to get a few things open. We're going to try to install this kit as quickly as possible because summer is rolling around the corner. And I've been able to notice the difference in the intake temperature of the bike just with the weather getting a little bit warmer. Whenever I would ride around and it was anywhere between like 40 and 50 degrees outside, the air intake temps would generally stay around the 130s to 120, somewhere in there. With it getting a little bit warmer, anywhere between, 60 to 70, even 80 degrees outside. Air intake temps have been staying anywhere between 140 to 150. That's just a little too high. Obviously, the bike's going to make less power because the bike's ECU is going to start trying to reduce timing and everything to make sure that everything is safe. So this should be a big help just on the longevity of the bike as a whole. So here's everything that's going to come with the kit. Let's just take sort of stock of everything we have. We do have our heat exchanger. This right here is going to mount, I believe, right in front of our radiator that's currently on the bike. I'm going to have to remove the screen off of that radiator. Probably figure out a new screen situation for this because I don't want this to get any type of puncture or rock chips in it as well, especially being that it is a custom part. We do have our intercooler right here. Real thick. I believe this whole kit weighs about 11 pounds. And so for those of you guys that are concerned about weight, obviously with this being sort of a power benefit, just, being able to keep your boost temps low and thus allowing you to be able to run more boost. But this being an added benefit for that, I can't see guys being too concerned about weight. But for those of you that are, this right here is about 11 pounds. We do have our hoses and everything. We do have a few accessory goodies in here for the kit as well. You can see another hose connector and everything. A lot of this stuff's probably going to run to the pump. We do have some thread sealant, some Loctite and everything. Here is our blow-off valve. Pretty cool. And so right now for the bike, then they also give you a template because we are going to have to do some drilling, which is kind of unfortunate, but we are going to have to do some drilling on the original airbox for the bike as well. But this is kind of the most OEM looking intercooler kit that we can get for the bike. And if I'm not mistaken, it may be one of the only intercooler kits that you can get for that bike. That package right there, we're going to leave unopened because that is for the caliper. I don't have a Brembo caliper quite yet for the rear of the bike, so we're going to just put that one in storage until I decide to go ahead and get a caliper. All right, guys, so we're going to do our best to try to get as much of this bike taken down today as possible. I'm not entirely sure how long of a process this is supposed to be. However, what I will say is I have had to take this bike apart for the most part up here in order to install this steering damper. Hopefully you guys have seen that video. Real informative, real cool video. So if you guys haven't seen it, make sure that you check it out. I think I'm also going to have to take this back out of here in order to put the intercooler in, is what I'm thinking. Because I know that whole front section plus the tank has to come off, so. All right, guys, we finally got just about everything that we need off for at least this upper portion. I believe I still have to take the side covers off of the radiator. We did get the tank off. I wasn't able to record that, but that's because it was probably one of the most difficult tanks that I've had to take out of anything. That's including bikes, cars. For whatever reason, Kawasaki uses this little clip right here. As you can see, there's not much on this at all to hold. And on the other one, they use a clip like this. Real easy to take off. These two hoses right here go under the tank, this one and this one. And so you had to remove those first. Then you had to remove two connectors back here just a real difficult process, but we finally got access to everything that's in this area. With that being said, you guys can see the supercharger right here in that beautiful red coloring. One thing that I'm a little curious about that I don't remember seeing on the installation process for this intercooler is the fact that there is I'm not entirely sure what this is, but I'm almost certain it has something to do with some type of evap or some type of recirculation. But there is another piece of equipment that is right here in the area where the intercooler kit, or I guess the intercooler pump, will sit. It does look like some stuff's gonna have to get unplugged. Some stuff's gonna have to get moved out of the way. So how about we go ahead and start doing that next. For this little piece right here that I mentioned to you guys about earlier, move this light out of the way, this little piece right here, there is a bracket that holds all these connectors together. And that bracket has 3 bolts, 1 bolt right there, 2 more bolts right there and right there. Once you remove that bracket, you can finally disconnect all these connectors. One of these is a blank, I believe it's this one, for your auxiliary, and that is what we're gonna connect our pump to. But then you can kind of pull this thing out of here. I don't see a scenario in which you're able to fit the pump in there with it. I'm gonna go and look at the instructions to be sure that I can't keep this, but it does look like there are no real harness connectors or anything that control this. We are gonna have to replace the blow-off valve anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead, take this little piece right here off in order to get the blow-off valve and everything in there, but also to give me a little bit more space to put this pump right here in. We're gonna go ahead and we are going to take the plenum off. Make sure, obviously each of these injection wires are gonna go to something different. So make sure that you take off all of them. Remember what order they go in. We do have a little bracket right here that holds them. And then we have another line. This is gonna be an absolute joy to try to put back in, an absolute joy. All right, so we did get the injector rail off. Just left the injectors in, just because that's sort of how the rail wanted to come off. Spilled a little bit of gas down there, but it's all good. Next mode of action is to try to get this intake plenum off. There's gonna be a series of sort of Allen bolts that's gonna have to come off with it. And if you want, you can take them off in a crisscross pattern. I didn't realize how tight these velocity stack bolts actually were. Extremely tight from factory. There we go. Just make sure that you have your Allen key all the way down inside of that bolt, because if not, and you strip it, but you're gonna have an amazing time trying to get that out. All right, guys, and here is probably the more, or I guess the most difficult part of this whole thing, and that is going to be drilling these holes. Now, they do give you a little mounting plate. It can only fit in there one way, and so you just sort of put that down and center it up, and then drill your hole. Now, it is a little bit easier to do this if you have a drill press. However, it's still not the easiest thing in the world to do. So, now that we have the holes in the plenum cut out, I did go ahead, make sure I sprayed everything down. Also blowed it out with compressed air to make sure we have no more metal that's in the way. You can go ahead and take your intercooler, and I did go ahead and put some thread sealant on these threads. You can take your intercooler, put it in here. It fits in real snug, just like that. And then you have to go ahead and thread it in from the bottom. And then once you get it all snug, you should have it about like this, so that they're in this orientation, sort of pointing outwards. One thing that I should have mentioned is that I did go in and sort of just grind down these ridges around the hole on both ends that I ended up cutting through, just so that this washer, it does sit flat. You guys can see it sits flat. So that might be something that you want to go ahead and do as well. Just grind those down. This is now good to go and almost ready to put back onto the bike. I'm still going to have to take this trumpet out and shave down those little nodules that it's mounted on, but we could try to save that for a little bit later. For right now, we're going to go ahead and try to mount this up in here, since it's a little bit easier to do without any of the plenum and anything in. However, it is also hard to do with one hand, but I'll show you guys how this thing gets in here in a second. All right, so this is generally how it's gonna look. I do still have the tape up here. This is gonna get taken off here in a bit, but it's gonna go behind this right here. This is gonna go to the bottom portion of that intercooler right there. And then the other portion that I have routed right up through here is gonna go to the radiator heat exchanger. That's gonna be down there a little bit lower. For right now, we're gonna go ahead and try to get this pump in. This is also going to be a two-handed job. So it's got to go right down in here. This hose is gonna have to fit through this area right here. Not entirely sure how I'm gonna get it in there yet, because the area is really tight. We have come a little bit of a ways since I originally showed you guys just where I had routed that one hose right here. I had to go ahead and try to get the actual heat exchanger in, as well as the pump. However, proved to be a little bit difficult. I ended up having to relocate the horn. Did not know I was gonna have to do that originally, so I relocated the horn. We did get the heat exchanger mounted, and we got the hoses ran for it as well. Did have to get rid of my radiator guard. Gonna have to figure out a way to modify it, or figure out something else, so that way I can have some type of guard in front of the heat exchanger and the radiator. Don't want to have any issues with rocks on, any of those backcountry roads whenever me and the boys are riding. So the last thing was getting this pump in here. We're gonna go ahead and try to fit that lower plenum back up here, get a lot of these wires and everything ran back where they need to go. I did go ahead and plug in all these. And I did speak with Ben from Extreme Creations. He did confirm to me that the evap canister that originally said where the intercooler pump sits now, you can just sort of do away with it. You do have to sort of do some rewiring, or not rewiring, but some rerouting of different lines and such. But you can just do away with the evap canister. Shouldn't throw a code or anything like that. You should be good to go. I am expecting some codes, just because everything has been unplugged. That's why I've been trying not to turn the bike on since I've unplugged everything. One thing, guys, there are a few gaskets. You guys may have seen them. There are a few O-ring gaskets that actually sit underneath each of these throttle body holes. So make sure that you put them on. There are also a number of copper washers that go in each of these holes before you put the bolts down. I have mine over there in the upper plenum. So just make sure that you guys don't forget those as well whenever you're going and trying to put everything back together. Now we want to go ahead, while we still have some fairly good access to the blow-off valve area up here, I want to go ahead and try to fit this blow-off valve up here. We did tighten down all these bolts, and it's very important that you tighten down these bolts almost as tight as you can possibly get them, because this is in your intake area. And so if one of these bolts were to come out, then it would possibly go in here, and that would be a really bad day. So did tighten these as hard as I could possibly tighten them without, stripping them or anything like that. And so let's see if we can get this blow-off valve up here. So we did get the little intake trumpet taken off, as well as got the little dowels that were sort of holding them in. We got those ground down. So now we should be good to go ahead and try to fit this plate back onto the bottom half of the manifold. Alrighty, guys, so as you can see, we got everything basically all buttoned up. We do still have to fit, of course, the fairings and the tank and everything, but and also this this steering damper right here. But as far as everything, as far as the intercooler is concerned, we got everything buttoned up, tightened down. We do have a few connectors back here for the gas tank undone, but other than that, we should be good to go ahead and try to get this thing with the accessories on. That way we can try to go ahead and bleed the system. And in riding this bike a bunch of times after installing the intercooler, granted, I do still have a camera set up for you guys. I think I'm going to do a little bit more working on this case in order for me to actually put my microphone on the camera while still being able to have the camera in the case. But we will have some riding footage coming for you guys soon, so just make sure that you stay tuned. I can honestly say that I am absolutely loving it now. Absolutely loving it, guys. The bike stays, I would say, anywhere between 30 to 40 degrees cooler with that intercooler kit than it did whenever I didn't have it. Nowadays, even on warm days, I can be cruising and I can be right around anywhere between 97 to maybe like 110 intake temps. Whenever I didn't have this intercooler kit, the bike on hot days would be cruising somewhere around the 130s to 140s. And even like getting on it, I can get on the bike now and really do like a hard pull, not be too worried about the intake temps. I think the highest I've seen them get might be like 155. Whereas before, I was seeing them get closer to 190. Anybody who's rode a bike, especially a 1000cc bike or even a 600, you're gonna notice even more so than most people will. But the thing that most bike guys like to do the most is just ride in the higher RPMs. And I absolutely love being able to ride in the higher RPMs now and not be too worried about the bike overheating. Beforehand, I couldn't ride in the 6,000 to 8,000 RPM range because what would happen is the bike would really start building up a lot of heat. So you would go from, being at that 130 temperature to being at like 170, 180 quick without even really getting on it. You're just sticking it in the higher RPMs. And so I am really happy with the purchase. Guys, if you don't have an intercooler kit, but you have a ZH2 or you have an H2, H2SX, whatever the case may be, make sure that you guys go get that intercooler kit if you actually want to have fun with your bike, if you actually want to be able to ride the bike how you should and how you really could if you had it. Make sure that you guys go get it because I've absolutely been loving it. I hope that this video was very helpful for you guys that may be trying to install something like this, or that you just didn't know about it and now you do. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe, guys. I love interacting with you guys in the comment section. So make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. But just like that, guys, I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.